Number 10, Joker Virus. Gotham City usually smells like rain and chaos, but in the late 21st century, it smells like burning circuit boards. Back in 1998, Pepe Moreno decided that the physical Joker was a bit too fleshy for a cyberpunk feature, so he replaced the man with a sentient computer virus. This digital ghost is the ultimate legacy project, a piece of malicious code left behind by the original clown to ensure that even after he died, the city's automated systems would still have a nervous breakdown. It's basically the blue screen of death, but with a homicidal sense of humor and a much higher kill count. The visuals of Digital Justice are a total trip, because the book was a pioneer in the computer-generated art. Today, it looks like a PlayStation 1 game that was left in the microwave for 20 seconds. The Joker virus is just a collection of jagged pixels and neon lines, lacking the scary eye contact manic energy that makes the real guy terrifying. You aren't watching a master manipulator at work, you're watching a corrupted file try to crash a city. It turns Batman's legendary blood feud into a really stressful tech support call. To make things even more chaotic, the protagonist is the grandson of Jim Gordon, who puts on a digital batsuit to fight the virus in a virtual reality landscape. The whole climax honestly feels like a low-budget rave, where everyone forgot to bring the music. It traded the psychological depth of a madman for a bunch of abstract hacking sequences and data techno speak about mainframes and data streams. It's a weird time capsule of an era that thought the scariest thing in the world was a floppy disk with an attitude problem. I guess the only thing scarier than a killer clown is having to explain to your boss why the entire city infrastructure was deleted by a GIF. Number 9, Super Maid Lois Lane. Krypton is usually the place people are trying to escape, but for baby Lois Lane, it was the ultimate promotion from a dying Earth. In this 1963 Silver Age swap, Earth is the planet that goes boom, and Lois's scientist father stuffs her into a rocket to save her from the apocalypse. She lands on Krypton, where the gravity turns her into a powerhouse, granting her every ability Superman usually has. You would think she would call herself Superwoman or the last daughter of Earth, but the writers went with Supermaid because apparently even cosmic power cannot escape the 1960s gender roles. I feel like the dynamic on this Earth is incredibly awkward because Kal-El is just a normal powerless scientist who spends his time staring at Lois with a mix of awe and confusion. She flies around doing the heavy lifting while wearing a costume that looks like it was designed by someone who had only seen a superhero through a foggy window. On top of that, the story doesn't really know what to do with a powerful woman, so it just makes her a domestic version of Superman who still worries about her hair. The logic here is honestly as thin as a piece of paper, where the Supermaid title feels like a weirdly specific insult to her potential. It is a total gimmicky story that refuses to let Lois be her own person, instead forcing her to live out a mirrored version of Clark Kent's life, except with none of the cool names. It's the kind of alternate reality that makes you realize some writers really struggle to imagine a woman being a hero without making it sound like a chore. At least she could fly away from the dishes, knowing this era though, she probably used her heat vision to dry them faster. Number 8, Vegeta Wolverine. Logan has survived world wars and experimental surgeries, but nothing could prepare him for his greatest challenge, being a blatant copyright infringement. During the early 2000s, Marvel's decided they wanted a piece of the anime pie, so they created the Marvel Mangaverse. Their version of Wolverine looks like he spent his entire life training in a gravity chamber while screaming for 20 episodes straight. He has the exact same gravity-defying hair and shoulder-padded armor as Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z, making him look less like a mutant and more like a cosplayer who got lost on his way to a convention. Crazy thing is that they ditched the classic metal claws for energy blades. He has one plasma claw and one metal one, which honestly sounds like something a middle schooler would draw back on his notebook. They completely stripped away the grimy, cigar-smoking essence of Wolverine and replaced it with a polished, teen-friendly aesthetic that I think feels totally hollow. The whole thing feels like a corporate board meeting where someone shouted, "Kids like spiky hair," and everyone just nodded until this monstrosity was born. It's a variant that confuses both Marvel fans and anime fans because it doesn't do justice to either world. It's a bootleg version of a legend that tries so hard to be cool that it ends up looking like a discount toy. But let me know in the comments if you like this mashup or not. Number 7, Spider-Man. Most versions of Peter Parker are just guys who could stick to walls, but Earth 1-1580 decided to take the name literally and create a walking nightmare. Instead of a teenager with spider powers, this version is a sentient colony of thousands of radioactive spiders that ate Peter Parker. They absorbed his consciousness and now huddle together inside a suit to pretend they are a human. Gross. When he talks, it's just the sound of 1,000 of tiny legs rubbing together to mimic a voice, which is a great way to ensure no one ever wants to hang out with him. The logistics of this character are a total mess, because if he ever gets a paper cut, he literally leaks spiders. He still makes the classic Peter Parker quips, but they land a bit differently when you realize they're coming from a hive mind of bugs that are probably just still digesting a human heart. It takes that friendly neighborhood vibe and replaces it with the kind of biological horror that probably would make most villains retire on the spot. He is a walking pile of arachnids that somehow manages to maintain a moral compass, which I think is a lot to ask of a swarm. What is truly wild to me, though, is how the other spider variants just treat him like a regular guy, even though he is constantly joking about eating people. It's a gross-out concept that requires you to ignore every rule of biology just to make the joke work. It's all fun and games until he tries to go through a metal detector and the security realizes the hero's actually a moving pile of infestations. Number 6, Spider-Man. Peter Parker usually carries the weight of the world on his shoulders, but on Earth 3123, that burden falls on a woman who's mostly worried about whether you have eaten enough. This what-if scenario happens because Peter forgot his lunch and Aunt May rushed to the science lab to deliver it, only to get bitten by the radioactive spider herself. She becomes Spider-Man, a superhero who patrols the city in a puffy dress and an apron, probably carrying a spare sweater in case of any of the villains look a bit chilly. Honestly, the visual of an elderly woman swimming through Manhattan without a mask is peak Silver Age comedy. She doesn't even try to hide her identity. She just goes about her business like she's heading to a bake sale. Her fighting style mostly involves lecturing criminals about their manners and using her powers to make sure the neighborhood stays tidy. It completely removes the high-stakes drama in the with great power speech, replacing them with the kind of gentle scolding you would get for tracking mud into the house. This variant is definitely on the silly side because it turns a high-flying action comic into a slapstick sitcom. While it is funny to see a grandmother take down a mugger with a rolling pin, it makes it impossible to feel any real tension. She is a cult favorite for how ridiculous the concept is, but she represents a time when comics would try literally any idea if it meant seeing a character in a funny hat. It's hard to be a menacing supervillain when your opponent is busy checking if you've had enough vitamins lately. Number 5, Centaur Superman. Superheroes in mythology are usually a great mix, but 1996 gave us the version of the Man of Steel that no one actually asked for. In the story Whom Gods Destroy, the world is a mess of Nazis and Greek gods, and Superman gets hit with a magical curse that turns him into a centaur. He is literally half man, half horse, with his iconic blue shirt stretched over a four-legged body, which to me is pretty gross. He is still the hero we know, but now he has to worry less about horseshoes. The comic tries to play for this drama, with Clark Kent reflecting on his new equine life like it's a deep spiritual journey. However, in reality, he just looks like a glitch in a video game where two character models merge together by accident. Because seeing the Stallion of Steel gallop around with someone riding on his back is one of those things that is so absurd you can't help but laugh. It doesn't add anything to the story other than making the artist have to draw a lot more legs than usual. This version is a prime example of the 90s obsession of edgy transformations that didn't actually mean anything. It's a weird mashup of genres that feels like the writer was just looking for a book of Greek myths and a Superman comic at the same time and decided to use glue. Which is why I guess even the most powerful hero in the world isn't safe from a really bad costume change. At least he never had to worry about finding a parking spot, though the bill for 4 boots must be absolutely astronomical. Number 4, Headpool. The Marvel Zombies universe is a dark and gloomy place, but even the apocalypse has a mascot, and it happens to be a rotten head in a hat. Headpool is the zombified version of Deadpool who lost his body but kept his mouth, which is basically the worst case scenario for everyone else. Since his healing factor keeps him alive in a state of decay, he just floats around as a severed head making jokes about brains and breaking the fourth wall while people try to survive the end of the world. To help him get around, he eventually gets a propeller beanie hat that lets him fly, which is a level of cartoonish nonsense that clashes perfectly with the gore around him. He is treated more like a talking accessory than a character, often being carried in a box or just being grabbed by the mask like this. He has all the annoying traits of the original Deadpool, but with 100% less ability to actually help in a fight, making him the ultimate cosmic pest. It marks the exact moment when the zombie trend in comics stopped being scary and started being a comedy routine. He's a variant that exists solely to be a visual punchline, proving that Marvel will take their most popular characters and literally tear them apart just for a few extra laughs. It's hard to take a zombie invasion seriously when there is a severed head wearing a toy hat that makes puns in the background. I guess when you lose your body, the only thing left to do is to make sure everyone else is as miserable as you are. Number 3, Galactus Herald Aunt May. Aunt May is usually busy worrying about Peter's laundry, but in 1984, she became the most powerful grandmother in the known universe. In a bizarre issue of Marvel Team Up number 137, she's accidentally gifted the Power Cosmic and becomes Golden Oldie, the new and my personal favorite herald for Galactus. But instead of finding planets for him to consume, she uses her maternal instincts to find a relatively better solution for his hunger. She travels across the galaxy and finds a cosmic baker who makes planet-sized sponge cakes, which she then feeds to the devourer of worlds. The image of a golden glowing Aunt May floating through the stars to deliver giant Twinkies to a space god is the kind of thing that only happens when the writers are having a very long lunch break. It parodies the serious epic nature of the Silver Surfer by putting a frail old lady in the role. Galactus, a being who usually strikes fear into entire civilizations, ends up looking like a grumpy toddler who just needs a snack and a nap, which I think is a legendary moment of comic book camp that refuses to take itself seriously even for a second. Even though it turned out to be a dream at the end of the issue, the fact that it exists at all is a testament to the era's love for the absurd. This is a variant that takes the most grounded character in Marvel and launches her into the deep end of cosmic insanity. It's delightful and stupid in equal measure, showing that even a planet eater can be tamed by a well-timed pastry. Number 2, Whale Charles Xavier. The X-Men have seen some strange things, but encountering their leader as a giant space whale with a sense of style that is definitely at the top of the list. In a 2012 multiverse adventure, the team finds a version of Professor X who is an Akanti sky whale. He isn't just a guy who could turn into a whale, he is a literal massive cetacean floating through the void of space. This version of Xavier still has all his telepathic powers, meaning he can beam his thoughts directly into your brain while he drifts past your spaceship. Honestly, the visual is so random that it feels like the result of a dare in the writer's room. There is no real reason for him to be a whale other than the fact that the multiverse is infinite and eventually, the math says a whale in a hat has to exist. It is a peak example of anything goes logic that makes modern comics so unpredictable. What makes it even crazier is how the other characters just roll with it, having serious philosophical debates with a creature that could accidentally crush them by rolling over. This is a variant that serves no purpose other than to be a weird visual gag in the sea of alternate realities. It's basically the kind of thing that makes you stop reading for a second just to make sure you didn't accidentally buy a surrealist art book instead of a comic. At least he never has to worry about being paralyzed from the waist down, considering he doesn't have a waist anymore. Number 1, Lunch Lady Darkseid. Darkseid is a being of pure malice who wants to erase free will from the universe, but in the world of Tiny Titans, he is mostly just worried about floor wax. In this All Ages series, the ruler of Apocalypse is reimagined as a school lunch lady and occasional janitor. He still has his rocky gray skin and glowing red eyes, but instead of commanding armies of parademons, he is commanding a mop and serving tater tots to a bunch of toddlers. It's probably the worst case of demotion for a guy who's usually considered the final boss of the DC universe. The good thing is he still takes his job with the same grim intensity as he did his quest for the anti-life equation. He glares at the kids for making messes and answers to the school principal, who happens to be Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke. Seeing a godlike entity wearing a hairnet and an apron adds a level of disrespect that is honestly impressive. It takes all the cosmic horror out of the character and replaces it with the soul-crushing reality of a middle management job at an elementary school. This is, to me, the dumbest variant because it completely neuters one of the scariest villains in fiction for the sake of a playground joke. It is a brilliant bit of subversion that turns a world ender into a guy who's just trying to get through his shift without anyone spilling juice in the hallway. It's the perfect antithesis to everything this character stands for, making it a hilarious and iconic piece of comic book history. It's gonna be tough to beat, but let me know in the comments if you know a variant even dumber than this. That's it for this one. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you never miss a drop. Craving more stories from comics, movies, and beyond? Check out this video right here. Cheers and see you in the next one.